soul mirror where each conversation reflects a deeper truth within. I am your host, Shreya. Today we are joined by the insightful Blair Abee, a yogi, author, and founder of Higher Consciousness Meditation. From Silicon Valley boardrooms to meditative breakthroughs, Blair's path proves that inner stillness can be our greatest strength in chaos. Let's explore how mindfulness, meditation, and manifestations aren't just buzzwords. They are blueprints for conscious living. So, welcome, Blair. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Shreya, good morning. Thank you. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, definitely. And your story starts with a tough boss and a deep breakdown. How did that external chaos become the catalyst for creating your own meditation method?
Yes. Um, I actually started meditating almost 45 years ago when I first moved to San Francisco from the East Coast and took a yoga class. Of course, meditation was part of the yoga class. Um, and that started my whole spiritual journey, um, which included exploring various spiritual traditions, um, trying out various meditation practices, and so forth. However, about 8 years ago, I was unjustly fired from a high level job after reporting that my supervisor was mishandling money and abusing employees and basically running our program into the ground. There was an investigation that was done. She was fired, but they fired me too because they said I was a troublemaker. And I guess in a way, I did make trouble for them in bringing attention to the problem. Um, and as you can imagine, that was traumatic. Um, Lost my job, my income, my ego was horribly bruised. Um, and I took a deep dive into my meditation practice um, as therapy. Um, every night I would sit and basically journal, um, into the computer, and I began to get a sense of spirit flowing through my fingers. Uh, it, it it was a very strange um, feeling, very strange experience, and I began to realize that I was actually making soul contact. I was in touch with that higher consciousness part of all of us, um, but which um, not a lot of people um, have had a lot of experience with. And as I wrote, I generated several hundred thousand words in journaling and realized that I had materials for books and I had ideas and concepts and new ways of thinking that had come through me that other people would get value from. And that was the beginning of my um, author um, career, if you will. Never intended to be an author, but all of a sudden there it was. And I've done now 7 books, um, which I've published on Amazon. And it's just been unfolding and unfolding and unfolding in a quite wonderful way.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your story with our listeners. The way you cope up with everything, it's really amazing. And what surprised you most about how your nervous system or even your spirit responded to that deep dive?
Well, I think the biggest surprise was that even though conceptually I had a notion of soul and higher consciousness, um, what I um, actually had was a direct contact or direct experience of higher consciousness or of soul. And, I realized, among other things, that all of us have that we are, in fact, all eternal beings that are living inside of these biomechanical vehicles that we're driving around, through our lives. Um, um, in effect, spirit inside of bodies, um, and that there were, and the meditation really was the most direct um, method for people to have contact with their higher self or with their consciousness. So um, I really, my mission really became to help people wake up and to help them experience soul contact themselves and to help them, um, instead of trying to wrestle with their mind in doing meditation, to go more directly into a experience of illumination, um, which is really I think, the purpose of um, deep meditation practices is, um, uh, again, contact with that higher self and having an experience of illumination. Um, so that's what I've been about now for the last 8, 9 years, and it was surprising, and it continues to be surprising. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll just start doing some writing, and I get a sense of spirit just kind of flowing through my fingers onto the computer screen, and it's always a kind of a blessed, if you will, experience to have that happen.
Yes, and I think sometimes the rock bottom is actually the sacred ground. It's where our real tools are born. And also, what exactly is the higher consciousness meditation, and how is it different from traditional practices that people may already know?
Well, again, the mm, purpose, uh, the intent of
Mhm.
higher consciousness meditation is soul contact. The intent is to have an experience of higher consciousness. The intent is to touch God, if you will, and to have, um, and to be filled with spirit. So the practice, which is really more complicated than we have time to get into today, is kind of a step by step process where, by going through the steps of higher consciousness meditation, at the end of it, you get a sense of being uplifted, you get a sense of contact with your higher consciousness or higher self, um, and you have something that you can then carry into the rest of your day. So I do that twice a day. And then also, oh gosh, once every hour or two, I'll also do a mindfulness practice. Um, and, I have one book on meditation, I have one book on mindfulness, and the one book on mindfulness offers up a number of mindfulness practices that are intended to give you a short jolt, if you will, or a short um, um, experience of reminding yourself who you are, that you're not just a three-dimensional being, but that you are an eternal being. And that's something that's useful to remember throughout the day. It's a way of tuning up your day. It's a way of tuning up your mind. It's a way of tuning up your vibratory frequency, if you will. Um, for example, I mean, it's as simple as just saying to yourself, peace, be still, or I breathe higher consciousness, or, and you can imagine, if you use just some real quick mindfulness practices like that, it'll remind you, you sort of remember to remember yourself. And, doing that 3 or 4 times during the day uh, gives you a way of kind of tuning up, and nobody needs to know.
Hmm.
It's just an ongoing practice. If you take advantage of that, um, will really improve the quality of your mental and emotional life in a way that's quite remarkable.
Yes, that's really wonderful. And also, can someone completely new to this meditation tap into this right away?
I would say yes. Now, this is different from traditional meditation, and that was part of the last question that you asked me. It's a little different from traditional meditation, which is about trying to um, force your mind to be quiet. They often talk about it as taming the wild horse. It's about mind training, and the mind doesn't really want to be trained, frankly. It doesn't want to give up the power over your life. Um, it doesn't want to relinquish itself to your higher self. So, you know, these sorts of things are intended to um, uh, allow you to do that and to give you some tools and techniques. So I think of myself as a tool maker in some ways, as a um, uh, um, as somebody who points in the direction for those people who have some interest in the subject matter, um, point in the direction of where you can go. Now, there are all kinds of techniques that you could use. Um, the books that I have really offer up my unique ways to explore. But there are all kinds of ways that somebody can explore meditation and explore their spirituality in order to begin to have uh, a uh, uh, a life that begins to be filled by spirit.
Yes. And I love when a method meets people where they are and not where we wish we were. And
Yes.
also, yes. And you have written 6 books on consciousness and manifestation. What
Yeah.
is the biggest myth that people believe about manifestation that you love to challenge?
Um, there have been books done, people who've become famous for um, offering manifestation techniques and methods and so forth. And I explored them, I tried them, and found that they didn't work very well, frankly. Um, they weren't very, you couldn't depend on them. Um, Trying to visualize, for example, a new car in your driveway. Um, uh, it doesn't really work in terms of having a new car appear in your driveway. Doing a vision board and trying to program your mind to create something that you really want doesn't work very well. Um, and I began to realize, and this was the realization that ultimately became the book that I wrote on manifestation. Um, that a much better way to manifest, to get what you need and want in life, is to turn what you need and want over to spirit, to turn it over to your soul or to your higher consciousness. So my manifestation process is real simple. It In that manifestation process, you say, um, I ask for the best possible outcome as it relates to my need for transportation. And then you pause and let you allow the feeling that your soul or your higher self has heard your request, and then thank you, higher consciousness, for your involvement in my life and for helping me with this issue. Now, that sounds real simple, and in some ways it is, because um, it doesn't take but just a minute, and you can use it for anything. I mean, creating a parking place to, creating uh, a relationship in your life that really works for you, or whatever it is that you're looking for, but you're asking for the best possible outcome for something in a general way, rather than being very specific and saying, I want a BMW in my driveway tomorrow. um, to Basically, you're in a way, you're saying to God, here's what I need and want, and I want you to produce this for me. There's no God that does that. There's no, I mean, the universe doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
However, on the other hand, if what you did was to ask for the best possible outcome, and you're asking your higher self for the best possible outcome, and your higher self knows what you need and want, asking it in a general way, not dictating what you need and want, but just opening up to the magic, if you will, of spirit going to work for you, and then thanking spirit for its participation in your life. um, I have found is a much better way
Yeah.
to create what you need and want than in trying to be treating God like Santa Claus.
Yes, definitely. And thank you for sharing this wonderful, accessible, and practical practice of manifestation, which really seems like a true manifestation itself. And you call yourself a spiritual toolmaker. What is one tool you reach for again and again when you feel disconnected?
Well, I mentioned just a moment ago a mindfulness
Mhm.
practice that and it's one of my favorites. And I just say to myself, peace, be still. If I find myself feeling out of sorts, or if I'm going to go do a talk, something that I can say to myself just before I go to do the talk, and it centers me, it calms me right down. Um, uh, so there are some just simple things that you can do in order to basically work with yourself, to tune yourself up, to raise your vibratory frequency, to again allow spirit to be involved in your life. Um, uh, One of the other mindfulness practices, or phrases that I use, is as simple as flow, spirit, flow. And you can see how saying such a thing
Mhm.
allows that to happen, because then you sit back and observe what the outcome of that is, and you just feel and marinate a bit for a moment in the feeling that you get, um, which is a way, if you're having some stress or some difficulty or whatever, you can use that, and it amazingly uh, uh, opens for things to be better at that moment.
Yes, and I think there is a magic in, especially when the practice with presence. And looking back over 4 decades of mindfulness and teaching, what has softened in you the most?
What is softened?
Yes.
Um, I think my tendency to judge others. Um, it's something that I think we all do.
Mm.
Um, you know, in fact, if you observe your thoughts for a while, you'll find yourself judging just about everything that you encounter, um, especially judging other people. Now, I could also say that about judging myself. Um, at one point in my life, and for a long time, um, I was pretty hard on myself. I was very intent. I was very uh, driven, um, and um, if I would make a mistake, I'd be hard on myself. Um, when I would go out into the world, um, I would judge everything that I see and every person that I see and draw conclusions. This is a good person. That's a bad person. This is a pretty person. This is an ugly person. This is um, um, a person different from myself. Uh, you know, how your mind works. I think that's probably the thing that, in terms of softening, that has softened the most. I'm much less likely to judge these days. I'm
Yeah.
much less likely to be hard on myself. Um, and That's a blessing. It's a blessing for me. It's a blessing for people around me.
Yeah, definitely. And if you could whisper one thing to someone who is on the edge of burnout, what would it be?
Find a meditation practice that works. It's the best and the most direct path to finding peace and to um, and to sort of get yourself out of that suffering that we all go through day after day after day after day, trying to deal with the world.
Yes, and that whisper might be the exact medicine that someone needs today. And this is a wonderful conversation with you. And if my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
The best way would be to go to my website, which is Blair, Blair, period, AB, ABEE.com. Just real simple, BlairAbee.com. And if they'll go to the website, I'll still get a chance to request a copy of my first book, which is called The Amazing Benefits of Meditation. And they'll also get on my mailing list, and I'll send them a uplifting message once a week.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all the details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and listen more from you because you are a wonderful person and thank you for sharing your stories, your knowledge, your experience with us and with our listeners. This is an amazing experience with you. And also, your journey is the proof that mastery doesn't shout, it breathes. And to all my listeners who are listening, if you have ever been rushing, reacting, or resisting your inner knowing, maybe it's the time to sit, breathe, and simply receive. The tools are within you. The moment is now. Stay still, stay sovereign, and remember your soul always knows the way.